So there are some disadvantages to crowns, but otherwise they're quite important things.
Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, issued a statement in tribute to his mother, addressed to Mummy, Mother, Your Majesty, 3 in 1. He said, Your Majesty, it has been an honour and privilege to serve.
When Prince Andrew stepped forward with the words, "It's time to reveal the truth," no one inside Buckingham Palace could have predicted the tremor it would cause. For courtiers and royals alike, it was as though a vault of guarded secrets had suddenly been unlocked. In his tone lay defiance. In his message, something far more unsettling. A revelation capable of shaking the monarchy's very core. But what truth could be so explosive, so unexpected, that it made Buckingham Palace tremble? This is that story. Queen Elizabeth II's final testament. For centuries, Buckingham Palace has stood as both witness and participant in the sweeping drama of British history, hosting coronations, enduring crises, and sheltering generations of the royal family. Yet on this extraordinary day, the palace itself seemed to hold its breath. Queen Elizabeth II, the longest reigning monarch in British history, had passed away, leaving behind not only a nation in mourning.
It is with deep sadness that Buckingham Palace has announced Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, the longest reigning monarch in Commonwealth history, has died at the age of 96.
But also a document of profound significance. Her will. Traditionally sealed for 90 years, her final testament was now to be revealed, a moment both historic and unprecedented. The task of reading it fell to Prince Andrew, a figure long shadowed by controversy. Holding the sealed envelope, he stood before the gathered family: King Charles, Camilla, Princes William and Harry, Princess Anne, Prince Edward, and others. Each tense with anticipation, unsure of what the Queen's final words might disclose. When Andrew broke the wax seal, the crack resonated through the silent halls. Unfolding the parchment with deliberate care, he began to read, his steady voice carrying the weight of a monarch, speaking one last time. The opening words radiated gratitude. Elizabeth expressed thanks to her family, her subjects, and the nation she had devoted herself to for 7 decades. Yet as her will progressed, its tone shifted from warmth to decisive authority, revealing choices that would reshape centuries of royal tradition. As expected, Windsor Castle, a symbol of continuity and royal endurance, was bequeathed to King Charles. Yet the next announcement stunned all present. Sandringham Estate, a property traditionally passed to the reigning monarch, was left to Princess Anne. A ripple of astonishment moved through the room. Anne, the Queen's only daughter and most loyal confidant, had been entrusted with a prize usually reserved for kings, a gesture both of recognition and subtle defiance of expectation. Then came Balmoral, the cherished Scottish retreat where Queen Elizabeth had spent her final moments. Instead of leaving it to a single heir, she decreed it would belong to all her children and grandchildren. In one daring move, she shattered centuries of tradition, creating a place meant to bring the family together, or perhaps ignite new tensions within the royal household. As Andrew read on, the significance of each decision became clear. Windsor symbolized continuity. Sandringham honored steadfast loyalty. Balmoral was a plea for shared responsibility and unity. Beneath the practicalities of inheritance lay deeper truths, questions of trust, favoritism, and the enduring weight of duty. Charles, holding Windsor but not Sandringham, felt the sting of expectation. Anne received both honor and responsibility. The younger royals faced a subtle challenge: to uphold family bonds or succumb to rivalry. As Andrew read the Queen's will, her presence and authority resonated profoundly. But why was he entrusted with this monumental task? And how deep was his bond with Queen Elizabeth? Now let's explore how Prince Andrew represented the Queen across nations, ceremonies, and the Commonwealth, from royal envoy to keeper of the Queen's legacy. Throughout the long reign of Queen Elizabeth II, the Duke of York stood at her side in ways that went beyond the private bond of mother and son. His role, though often understated, carried weight within the machinery of the monarchy. Time and again, he stepped forward to represent the Queen in her duties as head of state, acting as her envoy at both home and abroad. Whether welcoming foreign leaders, meeting government officials, or standing in her place at state ceremonies, the Duke of York became one of the trusted figures called upon to carry her authority into the wider world. In Britain, he was a familiar presence at the events that shaped the rhythm of royal tradition. Each June, when the scarlet uniforms and gleaming horses of Trooping the Colour filled the streets of London, the Duke was there, honouring the Queen during her official birthday celebrations. On solemn November mornings, he joined the nation at the cenotaph, bowing his head in remembrance of those who had given their lives in war. He was also a fixture at the Queen's garden parties, occasions that blended ceremony with warmth, offering him the chance to meet thousands of people, from military heroes and charity workers to everyday citizens who had made extraordinary contributions to their communities. But his service was not confined to Britain's borders. The Queen often relied on him to carry her presence across the Commonwealth, a family of nations bound to the crown by history and loyalty. His travels were not merely symbolic. They were a continuation of the Queen's lifelong mission to nurture ties of friendship and unity. In 2012, as the world celebrated Queen Elizabeth's Diamond Jubilee, the Duke of York took on one of his most significant responsibilities. Representing his mother, he traveled extensively across India. From the bustling heart of New Delhi to the historic streets of Kolkata, from the vibrant coasts of Chennai and Mumbai to the technological hub of Bengaluru, and finally to Kohima, where echoes of wartime sacrifice still linger. His journey was both a tribute to the past and a gesture toward the future, reinforcing the bonds between Britain and one of the Commonwealth's largest nations. 3 years later, in 2015, his role continued. He stood for the Queen in Singapore during the nation's 50th anniversary of independence, a moment of pride and identity for the island nation. That same year, he carried the Queen's presence to the Pacific, attending the opening ceremony of the Pacific Games in Papua New Guinea. In each of these moments, the Duke of York acted as a living embodiment of the Queen's authority. But what deeper messages did the Queen entrust to him, and what significance do they hold for the royal family? Let's find out. The gifts that carried messages. The Queen's will was never just about the passing down of jewels or estates. It was something far more deliberate, a message written in symbols, carefully chosen gifts that carried meaning far beyond their material worth. Every item, every decision, seemed to whisper the Queen's final thoughts on duty, love, and the future of the monarchy. Catherine, Princess of Wales, was one of the first names called. To her, the Queen left the Vladimir tiara, a dazzling piece steeped in royal history. But this was not merely a gift of beauty. It was a symbol of trust, a public affirmation that Catherine would one day carry the weight of queenship with grace. By placing such a storied crown in her hands, Elizabeth seemed to declare that the line of continuity would remain unbroken, and that Catherine, the commoner who became a princess, had earned her place as the monarchy's steady anchor. Then came the younger heirs. For Prince George and Princess Charlotte, the Queen's choices spoke volumes. To them, she entrusted not only glittering treasures, but something greater: her confidence that the future crown would rest securely in their generation's hands. The decision to place them side by side in her will, rather than elevating one above the other, was a quiet but groundbreaking statement. Elizabeth was signaling that the throne's future should not be dictated by gender, but by character, resilience, and devotion to duty. In that moment, she elevated Charlotte's role to stand equal with George's, a powerful gesture that rippled through the family like a challenge to old traditions. And then, to little Prince Louis, she left something softer, yet perhaps more enduring than jewels or estates, a handwritten letter. Folded neatly, sealed with her private crest, it was not for the world to see, but for the boy himself. What wisdom, what stories, what maternal advice did it hold? No one could know but him. It was a tender legacy, one that spoke to the Queen's understanding that sometimes the most personal gifts outlast even the grandest crowns. But then, the chamber fell still. Andrew spoke the next name, and suddenly the air seemed to vanish. Prince Harry. The Queen had left him a ceremonial sword once wielded by King George II, a blade heavy with history, forged in battles of honor and sovereignty. Why this? Why him? Was it a gesture of reconciliation? A reminder that he was still bound to the family's legacy? Was it recognition of his military service and courage? Or was it a rebuke? A sharp reminder of the weight he had cast aside by stepping away. The family exchanged uneasy glances. In that silent room, it became clear. The sword was not just a relic. It was a message. And messages, especially from a queen, could cut far deeper than steel. Every gift, every silence, revealed the Queen's power, her enduring legacy, and the unspoken truths she left behind. Beyond the treasures that carried hidden messages, was there a deeper, distinct message meant for each member of the royal family? And if so, what exactly was it? Now, let's unravel the Queen's final words, the final wish. As Andrew's voice reached the Queen's final passages, the entire room seemed to lean in. The tone had shifted. What began as a list of inheritances, jewels, castles, and priceless heirlooms, had now become something more intimate, more lasting than gold or stone. Elizabeth's closing words were not about possessions, but about values. It was as if she were reaching beyond the grave, speaking not as a monarch, but as a mother, grandmother, and custodian of an ancient legacy. She urged them to remember that crowns and titles meant nothing if they were not carried with kindness. Her plea was for unity, a unity stronger than personal rivalries, scandals, or the endless demands of duty. She asked for forgiveness, knowing too well the divisions that had cut through her family in her final years. And above all, she reminded them that the true weight of monarchy was not in the jewels they wore, but in the lives they touched. Her words grew sharper, almost prophetic. She spoke of strength not as power, but as service. To serve others, she wrote, was the truest crown of all. It was a message that seemed to echo through the chamber, reminding each royal gathered there that their survival depended not only on tradition, but also on compassion and responsibility. Elizabeth did not forget to single out those who had shouldered the heaviest burdens quietly. She praised Princess Anne, her only daughter, as the family's anchor, the steady presence in the storm, the one who had never wavered in duty even when the world was watching elsewhere. Her acknowledgement was brief, yet it struck with undeniable force. For Anne, it was both recognition and a charge to remain the family's compass in uncertain times. As Andrew's voice fell silent, the room remained heavy with the echo of her words. The royals shifted uneasily, some visibly moved, others wrestling with their own thoughts. It was Charles, the new king, who finally broke the silence. His voice, firm but tinged with emotion, cut through the stillness. He declared that his mother's words were not suggestions to be debated or politely remembered. They were commands. And if they hoped to survive as a monarchy and as a family, They must live by them. The final page was folded, but the weight of her message lingered like a shadow across the room. More than jewels or estates, this was her true legacy, a plea for unity, a call for forgiveness, and a reminder that the survival of the crown rested not on power, but on love. Her words carried a powerful truth. Unity, forgiveness, and love mattered far more than power, wealth, or tradition. But does the Queen's message resonate with every member of the royal family, or is there a deliberate omission? And if so, what could it truly mean for the future of the monarchy? Let's delve into the details. The omissions that shook the crown. Perhaps the most powerful aspect of the Queen's will was not in the jewels she gave or the estates she divided, but in the silences it held. Every carefully written line conveyed meaning, yet the true story lay in what was left unsaid. Among the names honored and the symbols of heritage passed down, some were conspicuously absent. Their omission spoke louder than any words could, leaving whispers of mystery, unanswered questions, and a sense of tension that lingered long after the pages were closed. There was no mention of Queen Camilla, the woman who had walked a long and difficult path to her place beside Charles. Her absence on the page was deafening. After years of speculation, controversy, and public debate about her role, many had expected at least a gesture of acknowledgement. Instead, there was nothing. Not a word, not a token, not even a symbolic reminder of her presence in the monarchy. Was this omission an oversight, a quiet disapproval, or perhaps the Queen's way of reminding the world that tradition, not personal affection, guided her final choices? Then came another silence, just as powerful. Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, was nowhere to be found in the Queen's final testament. Not even a token nod to her position as Harry's wife or as the mother of the Queen's grandchildren. To some, this silence seemed to confirm whispers of a strained relationship and an unhealed rift. To others, it felt like a deliberate act, the drawing of an invisible boundary, a reminder that stepping away from the crown came at a cost. Even more unsettling was the absence of Archie and Lilibet, Harry and Meghan's young children. While Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and little Prince Louis were given treasures tied to the future of the crown, the Sussex children were left unnamed. Did the Queen wish to protect them from the weight of royal expectation, or was this an unspoken sign that they stood outside the line she wished to preserve? The silence stirred unease, leaving courtiers and family members alike shifting uncomfortably as Andrew's voice trailed over the blank spaces where names might have been. The names left out of the Queen's will sparked more whispers than those carefully inscribed. Were these silences a gentle attempt at reconciliation, or a deliberate reopening of old, festering wounds within the House of Windsor? In a family where tradition, appearances, and unspoken rules hold immense power, the absence of certain figures spoke louder than any spoken criticism, cutting deeper than words ever could and leaving an uneasy shadow over the monarchy's future. Beyond the palace gates, life carried on as if nothing had changed. Tourists filled the mall, carriages rolled, and the flag fluttered high above Buckingham Palace. But within the gilded walls, the Queen's will had shifted the ground beneath their feet. With every name written and every name left unspoken, she had redrawn boundaries, unsettled loyalties, and reshaped the future of the monarchy forever. So, what do you think about Prince Andrew's revelation that shook Buckingham Palace? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.